for the stream. And
This conference will now be recorded.
oh boy, DeSoto KS. Yeah, DeSoto KS. Patrick, are you on? Yeah. I think your camera is turned off on your phone. Should be a little camera icon toward the bottom. Okay. Oh, I'm turned off too. Just in time, we have our technology squared away, I think. We used to just be able to have a meeting.
Thank goodness you're the one that's here to do it.
Okay.
I like the tables you got set up in front there. You're actually looking like planning for that seating.
Yeah, Patrick's got the biggest spot in the room, doesn't he?
All right, it is 7 o'clock. I would like to call the June 18th City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Daniels.
Here.
Lane.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Murdoch.
Here.
Ritter.
Here.
Thank you, council. Everyone's present
Okay.
here.
I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We'll start tonight with our consent agenda. Tonight we have approval of our minutes from our council meeting of June 4th and pay ordinance number 860. Any discussion of a consent agenda item or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
On Michael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Okay, next is call to public. I'm very happy to welcome the public back to our meetings. Comments discussed under call to public may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There is a 4-minute time limit. Does anyone wish to address the council during call to public? All right, seeing none. Dominic, you should get up and say something just because you're here.
Mayor.
Oh, thank you. We didn't get that in the agenda, did we?
I sent it out today.
Yeah, I needed a reminder. Our next item is a proclamation. I have a proclamation to read. Sorry, I'm not sure what that was.
That was Kevin's background, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. This is a proclamation honoring Lily and June Davison, who's going to be 105 this week. So, whereas Lily and June Davison will be honored by her family on June 20th, 2020 in celebration of the occasion of her 105th birthday, and whereas she was born in Armourdale in Wyandotte County, Kansas on June 20th, 1915, and has been a resident of this community since birth, she is a 1933 graduate of DeSoto High School. June attended St. Louis University Nursing School in East St. Louis, Illinois, from 1934 to 1938. During this time, she also worked at St. Mary's Hospital and continued after graduation until 1943 when she returned to DeSoto. In later years, June put her nursing degree to work at Lawrence Memorial Hospital. Whereas June became the wife of Bill Linden on August 3rd, 1943, this marriage was blessed with a daughter, June Ann Bookhammer of DeSoto, Kansas. Mr. Linden gave his life for his country on April 4th, 1945, while serving in World War II. June later married Maurice Tom Davison on January 8th, 1949. This marriage was blessed with a daughter, Nancy Steele of Linwood, Kansas. From these two daughters, June has been blessed with 5 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. And whereas, in addition to her duties as a wife and mother, June and Tom owned the Corner Market grocery store in DeSoto for 16 years. They then owned the Butcher Block restaurant for 7 years, and June's famous homemade cinnamon rolls and chocolate chiffon pie were known as the best around. June has been active in church and civic responsibilities, including the DeSoto United Methodist Church, Merrymakers Club, DeSoto PTA, and the Kaw Valley Square Dancers. And whereas June has lived during the most eventful century of this world's history, during her long and industrious lifetime, June has shown in numerous ways her dedication to the well-being of others, and she has earned the respect and affection of people from all walks of life and all ages. And now, therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of DeSoto, Kansas, I do hereby deem it an honor and pleasure to extend the community's recognition and appreciation to Mrs. June Davison on the occasion of her 105th birthday with sincere congratulations and best wishes for many more happy years and celebrations. In witness whereof, I have set my hand seal this 18th day of June, 2020. She's lived. We didn't put in here that she made it through 2 pandemics. Huh?
See a lot in 100.
Yeah, you darn right. All right. So our next item is old business, where we have approval of our fireworks sales permit applications for 2020.
Yes, Council, we talked about this at the last meeting, and there was confusion about it. And I think the source of the confusion was centered around our application process. So each July, applicants have to make an application for a fireworks sales stand for the following year. And there's a provision in the ordinance that requires, if we have more than 6 permits, they come to the council and we draw straws to see who gets the 6. And we've never had to do that. We only have 3 permits this year, and I don't think we've ever had any more than 5. So I think that may have been the source of confusion as to whether or not these permits were actually for 2020 or were these actually for next year. In fact, these are for this year, and I look back at every June and July since 2013 at least, and this is the same as in previous years. So essentially, it's the same action that we were thinking about taking last week. We have 3 fireworks permit applications. 2 of these qualify for a permit fee waiver because they're nonprofit local organizations. So if you could we have separate motions approving the fireworks permits, and then, if you wish, waiving the permit for the DeSoto United Methodist Church and for the VFW post, waiving the fee.
Any questions for Mike on this now? A motion?
Can the motion be one motion for all of the permits? Each one separate?
Sorry.
I don't have the names of all in front of me, so I'll let you make them.
So we're just
Individually, and then waive the permit or not. So that way we can have, so you can make a motion to approve and waive the permit for those that apply. And
So I'll make a
Or
motion
permit
that we
fee, sorry.
approve the fireworks permit for 2020 for the DeSoto United Methodist Church, Jake's Fireworks,
and waive the fee.
and waive the $500 fee.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Michael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
I'll make a motion that we approve the fireworks permit for Garrett's Worldwide Fireworks under Kathy Tillery for 2020.
I'll second the motion.
All right. We have a motion, a second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes. I'll make a motion that we approve the 2020 application for fireworks permit for DeSoto VFW Post 6654 and waive the
I'll second. I'll second
$500
that.
fee.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion's carried.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Item A, consider lease agreement for street department backhoe.
Yes, council, this is part of the vehicle and equipment replacement program. So in 2020, we have a number of acquisitions that we're going to make. This one will be in the street department. You'll remember, for contractors' equipment like this, basically the yellow steel, we've decided to go with lease arrangements where a lot of the maintenance is provided in that agreement. We started this in 2017. And at that time, we negotiated a master lease with Murphy Tractor that handles a number of our pieces that currently have under lease. We had $18,000 budgeted for this year. Sorry, let me switch the display here. $18,000 budgeted for this year. You can see the rest of the program there. One caveat to this is, because of concerns with revenues and the COVID shutdowns, we've decided to delay the purchase of the 5-yard dump truck for the street department until next year. So we won't be doing that. But we are moving forward with the other acquisitions, the trucks in the water department and the truck in the street department. So this is the only piece, leased equipment that we'll have for you this year. It's a 5-year lease. The total value of the backhoe is just over $118,000. Lease terms, $17,455.66 for 5 years. So that's just under our $18,000 allotment for this year. And of course, that'll carry forward to the other 4 years of the lease term. There's a provision in the lease that we can buy the equipment back at the end if we choose, for $42,640, or the dealer could just accept that back. there is one caveat, and if we incline to approve this tonight, I want to condition your motion on further review from the city attorney, because there's a new provision with Murphy Tractor regarding to the buyback provision. Is that correct, Patrick? And you're
Yes.
they
Didn't have that ready, but it'll just be a one-page agreement, just sort of codifying the dealership's obligation to buy back the equipment at the end of the lease term. So I don't expect any issues with it, but
Okay, so yeah, if you're so inclined, so we recommend proceeding with Heritage Tractor. Again, this acquisition is part of the cooperative pool purchasing known as Sourcewell, formerly NJPA. That covers our base as far as the competitive bidding and specifications process that we otherwise would have to take on ourselves. Much larger pool, much better prices that we get through this process. And we've confirmed that the deal they're being offered, it was the price associated in that competitive pool. So with that, we'd recommend approval of this 5-year lease with an annual amount of $17,455.66, contingent on the city attorney's review of the final documents.
Questions for Mike? Or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion. We approve the.
Yeah. I did have a question.
All right, go ahead, Kevin.
You talk about Murphy Tractor, but then in your memo, you say, please make a motion to authorize you to accept from Heritage Tractor.
I'm sorry.
Am I missing something?
No, it's Murphy.
Okay, so it's incorrect on the second page. So I just want to
Incorrect.
clarify that before a motion was made. Thank you.
Sorry about that. That was a typo. Holdover from the
previous purchase?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, go ahead, Lori.
Okay, now we'll make a motion to accept the proposal for Murphy Tractor for the 5-year lease for the backhoe in the amount of $17,455.66, contingent on review of the contract by our city attorney.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? If not, roll call, please.
Ritter,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried, Mayor.
Item B, consider bids for repair of lights at Sunflower Ball Fields.
Yes, Council. We had a storm come through in May that blew down one of the light fixtures out. This is out at the Sunflower Ball Fields. Somehow, when it blew the light to the ground, it didn't damage the light fixture. So thankfully, we're not going to have to replace these fixtures, but we do have to install a new pole and rewire it and put the fixture back on the top of that pole. We're working with our insurance company to see how much compensation we could get for this, but we do have teams currently practicing out there, and sometimes those practices go later in the evening. So we want to get the lights remounted. We were able to obtain 2 bids for this. Jay did. The lowest bid was from Brandy Electric, in the amount of $11,300. Obviously, this isn't a budgeted amount, but it will have to come out of essentially general fund dollars. We'll figure out the correct line item and put it there. We're asking for your approval to accept Brady Electric's bid in the amount of $11,300.
Okay, questions for Mike? Or a motion?
I'll make a motion. We accept the bid from Brady Electric in the amount of $11,300 to fix the light on Sunflower Ball Field.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll
Was
call.
this the only damage out there, or was there others, or just one pole?
Yeah, this was it. This was the only one, Danny.
Okay, thanks.
Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried, Mayor.
Okay. Item C. Discuss 2021 draft budget and 5-year projections. Do you want to just do this as item C? Can we just do item C after F? We'll go through the rest of
Certainly. Yeah.
it.
Save the best for last. No
Can someone
problem.
make a
I make a motion, we move item C to the end and after our last item on the agenda.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
So the next item we'll address is item D, approve final plat for carriage houses phase 9.
Yes, Council. As the name might suggest, this is the 9th time we've been through the platting process with carriage houses. This one is the same as the other processes. As you know, the condo storage facility down there is built. They're now building their 9th building. They have a 10th one yet to come. The platting process, because the units are sold individually, is a condominium process where we plat as a lot the envelope of the building first, and then they start the building, they get the foundations up, they start on the walls, then they survey the actual location of the building and the units, then they come and replat this lot. So this is the 9th building. The plat really just shows lot 1 is the envelope of the building, and it shows some of the common area around lot 1. So this is the first step, and Planning Commission approved this last month, and we recommend approval.
Questions? Motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept the easements and right-of-way of the carriage house number 9 final plat.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Mayor, the motion carried.
All right. The next item we will consider is item E, permit for archery for deer hunting on property at 31850 West 89th Street.
Yes, council, this is a permit that you've been approving now for several years. It's Mr. Graves, and the next item on the agenda is the property just next to his. He did send out the required letters to adjoining properties, letting them know that this would be considered at this meeting. Essentially, by approving this, you're just allowing deer hunting with bow and arrow during the regular deer season.
Okay. Questions for Patrick?
Only one I have is if he makes these the same ones every year, can we do these on a consent agenda? Do they have to be separate?
Well, the whole purpose is if any neighbors wanted to show up, that's why you really have to call it, and that's why I put it on the regular agenda. But I
Appreciate it.
it'd be easier to put it on the consent agenda. But
So a resolution number?
Yes, it would be resolution 1030.
Okay, I make a motion, we approve resolution 1030, accepting, or for property located at 31850 West 95th Street for exemption from prohibition of discharging bow and arrow within the city.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
I'll also make a motion, we approve resolution 1031, granting application for a 20-acre parcel located just to the east of 31850 West 89th Street for exemption from the prohibition of discharging bow and arrow within the city.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Okay. All right. Now, I guess we will go back to item C. I just wanted to move those ahead in case anyone was here for one of those shorter items. Discuss 2021 draft budget and 5-year projections.
Yes, Council. So this year's budget is the process has been a little bit different for us with the uncertainties with COVID shutdowns and revenue projections. So we started early, focusing our policy decisions really on the larger global 5-year projections than we did on exactly what we're going to be doing next year. And I think that's very appropriate. You know, a lot of the things, you know, I would consider the draft budget that I presented to you in May is kind of just a status quo budget, really, with the exception of these revenue projections and uncertainty surrounding them. So we've kind of had our focus on the revenues that have been coming in and some regional outlooks and some national outlooks about the economy. I don't want to say the picture is clear at all, largely based on, you know, some wide assumptions, but it's more clear than it was at the depth of the shutdowns when we first started thinking about it. So what I've provided for you is a revised 5-year financial forecast based on some less conservative assumptions about this year's sales tax collection. Really, that's the only change, the only material change in the revenue side that I've made. These projections, as opposed to the ones we talked about in April and May, are that it looks like the overall picture for sales tax collections will be less dismal, I think. I don't want to call them rosier, but they're less dismal than we had anticipated. So backing that is the information that I've attached to the staff report. This was produced by the Mid-America Regional Council. It's the economic forecast for the region. I'm going to skip down and just kind of show on the screen. This was, again, presented to the MARC board in May and really looks at employment numbers throughout the region in a lot of different industries. So this really is employment driven, but I think obviously employment is a big part of economic activity and outlook. And so it gives a broad outlook on what the experts at the Mid-America Regional Council are expecting from what can be expected for the rest of this year and for the next several years regarding the downturn. So their projections, broad brush message from what I received from that was that they're looking at a projected 13% downturn across the industries between the first and second quarters of 2020. So that's kind of the acute impact of the shutdowns, 13% reduction. Total employment won't return to pre-COVID levels until the second quarter of 2023. So that suggests that recession will be very deep, but it'll partly rebound by the end of the year, and it'll be slow recovering, but not as slow as the Great Recession was from 18 through 2012. So if you remember, what we decided on our projections was we were going to model the sales tax, at least. We're going to model the rebound after that period from 08 to 2012. And we also decided that we're going to model a 20% reduction in sales tax for 2020 as our starting point. So when we look at the sales tax that we've collected so far this year, I won't belabor the numbers, but this chart kind of shows you what we're looking at. This is the money we actually received January through May of this year. So the green is 2020, the black is last year, and the blue is 2018. So you can see that if you take the total of this, we're exceeding 2018 by about 5%, and we're exceeding last year by about 10%. One thing to keep in mind, however, is that these figures lag by 2 months. So we don't get the money for 2 months after it's collected, essentially. So the stuff we collected in May actually represents March. So, you know, if you look at our collections in May, they're up from last year. They're down from 2018, but 18 was an anomaly. So they're up a good part from last year, partly because last year was a bit muted on the sales tax, but this represents about half a month. So March, the shutdowns happened right before St. Patrick's Day. So that's about half of March was kind of shut down, and we're not seeing that necessarily reflected in sales tax. Now, next month's receipts representing April will really tell us a lot about that. But I think there's reason to back off I think now looks like a pretty extreme conservative estimate of a 20% reduction in sales tax for this year. So again, what I've done is reproject everything based on a really 10% reduction in sales tax this year compared to last year. And then, like I explained, modeling kind of the Great Recession, which, if you're looking at the Mark economic forecast, looks like that's still conservative because they're expecting a rebound before, a quicker one than the Great Recession. So with that, this is kind of what our sales tax projections are currently modeled at. The 2020 line represents 10% reduction from 2019. And then we have further reductions next year till it flattens out and then begins to recover. But still, even within this projection, after the fifth year in 2026, we still don't get back to the number we received in 2019. So that's kind of a statement on how conservative we remain with these projections. It does have a big impact on what we can do. And like we said throughout this different budget process that we've got going this year, is the policy questions are more about year 5 than they are about next year. They're really more about where we're going to be in 2026 than what we can possibly do next year. And that's really a function of the very healthy status that our fund balances are in moving into this year, and that what we've been able to do financially in the last several years. So in terms of changes to what you saw, the budget that I presented in May, the increased sales tax projections allowed us to work back in a merit increase for next year. So a total of 3%, assuming about a 1.5 cost of living, and then a 1.5 merit increase. So that's across funds. I think we talked about the water and sewer have kind of been insulated from all this. People are still paying their utility bills first and still using every bit as much water and sewer as they did before. So they're insulated really from the revenue side, and they could stand alone. But in terms of city employees, we're going to treat everybody the same. So 3% increase for next year. And then in terms of the projections modeling out, we're restoring the 4% annual increases throughout the projection period. Vehicle equipment and replacement, the 2021 program only has 2 new acquisitions, and I'm still recommending the delaying of the purchase of the new dump truck for the water department in 2022, and that's partly because we're delaying the street department dump truck this year. So we're just going to move those 2 back 1 year. If we purchase dump trucks, those are great big expenditures, and that all comes out of the electric reserve at once. And so doing 2 of them in 1 year doesn't really. So we're just kind of sliding those back a little bit. We're able to restore the building preservation funds. In the previous budget, we reduced those by. The community center and pool maintenance funds are still reduced by 15% for next year, but after that, we're able to restore those to the previous levels. And the water and sewer fund were remaining the same. Road maintenance fund, we reduced that from 450 down to 375. I've been able to take that back to 425,000 for 2021 and 2022, and then restore it fully through 23 through 26. So that's good news. That was something we really didn't want to have to do. Is that road maintenance, because really even the 450 could be higher for sure. So we restored those for the most part. EDC allocation, we had reduced it by 15%. We're back up to last year's numbers, $90,000. So those are general fund. There are some other tweaks with transfers here and there, but those are kind of internal, and we can present those back. They're not really policy things to really discuss and chew over. But those are the changes that we've been able to work back in. So I'm really happy about those. So in terms of these 5-year projections, we've got, this is what the picture looks like. Again, this, I think from this point forward, I'll just take the green off of here, because the green was our 5-year projections. I think that we did back in February. So it was before we knew COVID even existed. You can see year-end fund balances and the percentage fund balance as a percentage of expenses there in the green, and then the blue is the new projections. So you can see that generally what I try to do with these 5-year projections is have these fund balances moderate toward the 30% that's in our fiscal policy by the end of the projection, and so that's what we've been able to do here with these projections moving forward. So by 2026, we're at where our policy says we probably ought to be at 30%. So tonight, I don't necessarily need action. I'd like any feedback you have, any thoughts, concerns about this. We will come back. We did get, on Friday of last week, we did get the appraiser's final valuations for the county, both Leavenworth and DeSoto. They're within a couple $100s of what the figure we've been using. So it's somewhere around 89,700,000 was the total valuation, and yeah, it was within a couple $100. So it will not, it'll only impact the mill maybe a thousandth or so. So the mill picture still, if you'll remember from the previous, we're reducing the overall mill levy once again by a couple of percentage points. So that'll be the 4th year in a row we've done that. So I'll stop there and invite any discussion you have.
Okay. Questions, comments for Mike?
I don't. Thanks.
Do we want to,
Go ahead, Kevin.
well, I was going to say, do you want to go around or I didn't,
Sure.
I'll jump in here since I'm remote, I guess. A few questions or thoughts. And as I've mulled this around really since we discussed this in the last meeting and hearing some of these projections and forecasts that go on a regular basis, everybody's trying to take either, big picture information like from Moody's and scaling it down, Mark's bringing it down to the Metro and Johnson County series, bringing it down to Johnson County. And we're trying to figure out what does it mean to us. And so some of those things I wonder, we talk about sales tax. Well, the two big revenue items are sales tax and property tax, right? And there's a bunch of stuff in each of those, but the sales tax is one that we keep talking about being variable, and that it's up more than we think it ought to be. And it just feels to me like over the last year we don't really know enough about what generates our sales tax, because I don't feel like we have the retail presence. I don't know if we have any data on what retail sales occur in the community so that we can say how much of our sales tax collections come from, say, traditional retail sales versus, as I'm wondering, is it sale of construction materials and other kinds of sales activity that is not from our retail base? And therefore, how variable is it compared to if we knew, what comes from our retail base of, from Casey's to Harps to, traditional retail in the area. But it just feels to me like it'd be good to know a little bit more about what's driving it so that we do know the variability of it. But I don't feel like we are as susceptible to a big decline in retail sales tax collection as some of the other communities are, who in fact have a big retail base. Because if it's coming from non-traditional retail sales, then as long as whatever kind of economic activity is occurring in our community continues to occur, in other words, if household income remains stable, people will probably continue to spend money, then I would agree with you, Mike, in that I don't think we would be expecting a big downturn. Another one is, I wonder if we know, when you talk about the graphs of unemployment, do we know how unemployment has translated to our community? Because again, I would say as long as if our unemployment hasn't been affected by as much as, say, what is being reported by Mid-America Regional Council, then again, I think we can say our city finances are probably going to be more stable and less influenced than if we had that big unemployment drop. And then you talk about property tax, and I think if the employers in our community and the employment in our community remains stable. We know that the housing market is not tanked. So when you compare it to the Great Recession, the recession 2008, 9, 10, that era, that was about a big real estate collapse. And from what I'm hearing, that's not what is going to be affected in this case, where unemployment is probably going to take a little while to drag back, because we're also not as affected by the kinds of property that are going to go into distress, say retail centers or office buildings. I think we've got a fairly stable property base, both in commercial property and in residential property, and will probably continue to grow in property construction. And I don't think we'll see a decline in property value. So I think we have reason to not be overly conservative in our budget forecasting compared to even some of our neighboring communities. But two things I am curious about, I guess boiling all that down, is I feel like we got to figure out how we can learn a little bit more about where our sales tax collection comes from. And two, I would like to know more about how unemployment has been impacted in our community, so that we know how that'll affect spending habits that relate to our community. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Couple of things tagging on. Sales tax, we receive it 2 months after, or we receive the reporting 2 months after?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reporting of the sales tax collections are 2 months delayed, as well as we receive it when basically
the reporting comes about a week before, but more or less, it's a couple months behind.
And then on the sales tax, do we get a portion of the overall sales tax collected in the county?
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be where our variability of retail sales would impact the sales tax, would be not so much our sales tax in our community, but the overall portion we receive countywide.
That's right. That's right.
About equal or more than what we get from sales tax within the community.
Yeah. So this chart here kind of breaks that out.
So that's what creates the variability.
So what's called county use is our portion of the county sales tax from online sales. County sales tax is our portion of the county brick and mortar sales.
Yeah.
And city is just what happens inside.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great to know what Kevin's asking, but that's where I was kind of going, okay, wait, a large portion of that's also based upon the county use tax, thus the retail sales in the entire county. So
Right. And we haven't seen those drastically
change either.
Cut yet. But
thanks to Walmart and Home Depot.
We're a month away. Yeah, it seems like there's been offsets for the restaurants that have closed.
The malls have been offset
grocery stores
by the lumber yards and
grocery stores. And
I share Councilman Hanemichael's desire to get.
Can we get
to the bottom?
Community-specific unemployment?
Unemployment, I'm not sure. Sales tax, we get a wealth of information. The problem, it's just so much. It's like a fire hose. And so, I'd like to engage maybe Columbia Capital on our financial advisors on both fronts, on the unemployment front and on the sales tax front. We did this a couple of years ago. Kind of asked them.
Right.
Hey, what's going on? And they kind of shrugged their shoulders like we did. So maybe re-engage that discussion with them a little bit, because I too, this is a big part of our budget, and I'd like to have a better understanding myself.
Okay, good points, Kevin. Thank you. Questions? Lori, anything?
I don't think so.
Danny, anything to add? Okay. So we'll move on and wait for the next presentation at our next meeting, right?
So now that we have the county numbers, we can do the state forms, and I hope there might even be a chance to have you kind of a updated draft by the first meeting in July, but probably be the second.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next item, executive session, none. And advisory report, city administrator.
Yes, council. I sent an email this afternoon. I put this plat at your places. The council approved this plat 2 meetings ago. It's for the Brook West Estates 2, just a couple lots at the end of a cul-de-sac up there on the north end. In reviewing the public improvement plans, we saw a need for an additional easement on the plat, so that's shown here on this version. And then also the statement about deferred improvements for sidewalk installations. You'll remember it's only been a few months since we went through that process of updating our subdivision regulations to delay sidewalks until the time of the house construction. So Patrick's prepared a statement to go on the face of every final plat that we do now, essentially, that puts that on record. So we want to get your approval then, if you're comfortable doing that on the revised plat. Essentially, lot configuration, everything else is the same as last time.
Okay, questions?
So you just need a motion to accept the revised plat?
Yeah, just approve the revised plat.
So I'll make a motion. We approve the revised plat for Brook West Estates 2.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Michael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion carried.
Mayor votes.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Trying
Patrick.
to catch up here.
Okay, what's your next item, Mike?
Last item, reminder, smoke testing. We'll be doing some smoke testing in the DeMeadows and West Meadows area starting on Monday.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar with what that is, we have a need to find if there's any leaks in the sanitary sewer system. So we take blowers and you blow smoke down into the sewers, and where it comes up out of the ground, you have a break where water can get into the sanitary sewer. It causes sometimes false fire alarms because the smoke will exit out the vent stacks, the sewer vent stacks on houses. So people see that and they think a house is on fire. Also, if someone has a drain trap that doesn't have water in it, the smoke can get into the house. So they're notifying. They have these flyers that tell everybody that they're going to be hanging these tomorrow, meeting with the fire department tomorrow, and they'll start. It shouldn't take them a day or two to do that. We're just going to do those 2 areas and see what we find.
Are you posting on social media too?
Yeah, we have posts going out tomorrow.
Will any of our employees be down there? helping out?
Yeah, actually, Marshall will be.
Homes or anything that might not be conforming to, like somebody might hook up with.
Well, so that's kind of another
Any of that?
that's kind of another discussion. So we're not, if someone has a hookup inside the basement that shouldn't be there, that might, get some smoke in the basement, we're not necessarily going to want asked to go inside that house.
So,
And see
are
what-
we just going to document and take some later action? Or
Yeah,
do it?
usually if it's inside the house, the things that are inside the house, what we suspect is there's a good number of sump pumps that are connected into the sanitary sewer. Now, the smoke testing isn't going to show that, really, because those connections generally are airtight.
They're
So
right.
you won't-
There's a check
There's a
valve.
check
right after
valve,
the
and so
pump.
you won't find that.
Right.
Really, the only way to find those is to do physical inspection, enter homes, and do those inspections, and
Oh, yeah.
that's a whole other discussion to have. Really. What we're hoping to find is some great big curb inlets or some line down in a creek somewhere. That's one big thing we can fix.
Maybe a
and solve our
manhole
problem.
jar somewhere.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to find. But so to answer your question, then we will have city crew, Marshall Goodnight, and I think one other city personnel while we're doing that.
Help with those lines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just one.
Okay. That it, Mike?
That's it. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. City attorney. City planner is absent tonight, working on his air conditioning.
Working on his AC at home. Yeah, imagine that.
Okay. City clerk.
Nothing tonight,
All
Mayor.
right.
Thank you.
Lana. Council comments. Lori, would you have anything tonight?
I don't have anything. Thank you, Mayor.
Rob.
2 things. Number one, I complained about the right-of-way mowing, which doesn't seem to get done enough, in my opinion, but yet, in other people's opinion, could be done a lot less, considering they come through and, in their opinion, brutalize things. And in this case, part of the complaint was the fact that as they're basically trimming the trees, they were trimming hedge trees, and it all fell in the street, and it was left in the street, which left basically thorns in the street. And so people walking, bicycling, car tires become at risk of punctures, things like that. So one of the things was basically kind of that after they do that cleanup and things like that. So
Okay. I will say we've been behind this year. Seems like there's a reason we're behind each year, but this year we furloughed a couple people in the department.
well, I mean, I understand the delay this year,
Yeah. But we'll have some additional training on the cleanup.
yeah. So
be,
that was
yeah.
the one. Second was with the fireworks. Do we have any update on? I mean, Jake's finally got the signage back up, but are they going to have the parking lot entrance and all of that ready?
Yeah. So the drive is in. The entrance is in, and they were issued a temporary occupancy permit at the end of last week. So yeah.
So are you driving over gravel to get to theirs, or is it road to?
No,
That's concrete to the street.
it's all concrete. Yeah,
They're
it's in.
they're not fully developing that whole site that they're on. So part of it is still
looks
pretty rough.
rough.
But that's part that is not a future outbuilding or whatever. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think just a future pad site.
Pad site.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in the front, there's a pad site,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They had the striping down, the pavement, the drive was in, the pavement was down, the striping was on it. What
Mhm.
I saw last night.
Yeah, they've been making good progress since the first of the month, really.
Why does it? Never mind.
So is it a temporary occupancy or did they get full occupancy? And what's
temporary
holding them
occupancy.
from getting occupancy? Because I thought we talked about this, about not giving them temporary occupancy. Either they have it done or they don't. Yeah. Is that just the way the process works?
Yeah, kind of. So there were no issues that we could find to deny them temporary occupancy permit.
So
But what
do
makes
they-
the difference between?
Yeah. What do they need to do?
Well,
to have
typically
occupancy?
it's sometimes it's landscaping that's because of the season of the year. You can't put
But
it
that's-
put it in fall. But I think that might be some of the reason. But then also the reason for last week, the temporary, because they had access by one direction, but not the other. They poured the concrete, but the concrete needed to set for a couple of days before they could allow traffic on it.
So the text that I sent you, did the building official, did he state whether they'd had their sprinkler system
Yeah.
inspected before they?
Yeah.
That's all good?
Yep.
So that's all
Sprinklers
good.
and alarms, life safety.
That was my concern.
Yeah.
Because I saw them loading in Sunday, as I expressed.
Right.
So, I was wondering. So all the safety stuff's good, it's just the outside stuff.
Yeah, and there might be some landscape. I didn't drive by today, but it looked like it was largely complete.
It looks like the stuff in between the sidewalk and the building is what's left.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're still shooting for the grand opening on the 28th. I mean, that's kind of what they're.
On a side note, apparently we are gonna have a neighbor next to him now. Official.
Where's that?
O'Reilly.
Yeah, across the street.
They've
I don't know
announced.
how official it is. Hike 10 has shown the O'Reilly
They're
logo
showing
on their
it.
marketing. We did get a site plan application, but we won't have it at the June Planning Commission. It'll be at the July Planning Commission meeting, which is at the end of the month.
And then just one last thing. It's nice to be in a community where you can work with local. We had a weekend without heat.
Mm.
So our air conditioner died. So
Lots of heat.
Huh?
You had a weekend with lots of heat,
lots of heat.
not lack of heat.
Lots of heat. Lack of AC.
Right.
But it was nice to be able to deal with companies like Great American and Harding Heating and Cooling and local businesses that take care of you well.
Kevin?
I had a few things. A couple of them he already covered. One was the complaint that I received was on the north side of Waverly, and the gentleman was using that extended boom.
Yeah.
We had no help to help pick up, and so that was a
Is that, Rob, is that where you were?
I'm on 87th, so mine came from somebody on 87.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
probably two different people on that.
Okay.
The other one is the contracted mowing in general. Did we change hands with the company that we contracted with? Because it seems like the mowing has kind of declined a little bit. They're not
No.
trimming as well as they should be.
It's still Kansas Land Management. Now, Bill isn't as involved as he used to be, but it's still the same company. His sons or son-in-laws are running
I
it.
might kind of drive around and look.
Okay.
I know on 95th Street they mowed, but they didn't weed eat around any of the poles or do anything like that. So
Okay.
it's still about a foot high. Looks pretty bad. And I saw other places in town. Just wondered.
All right.
And then that one's already taken care of. The 40-hour sheriff that you had mentioned that was part of our new 40-hour Rob. Are we ever going to get an introduction of that gentleman? Is he ever going to make it to one of our meetings? I haven't seen a sheriff's office in a while, so I was wondering if he was going to.
We can find out. I'm sure if we request, he will be.
Be nice to.
Yeah. Actually, Jeremy Campbell let me know that he's actually deploying. I think he's in the National Guard.
This happened to the
Yeah,
Air Force.
he's Air Force.
previous.
Yeah, and he'll be deploying for 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Okay,
So we'll have kind of a rotation going on.
until he gets.
Yeah.
He's going
Yeah.
to Afghanistan.
Okay.
Well, we should-
But the point taken, I think, you know,
Yeah,
we
we
should.
haven't seen him.
because in the interview process, he had no plans to do that.
Well, you don't plan that.
You don't plan that.
Yeah.
So
Somebody plans it for you.
Yeah.
The last one I got is probably a sore subject, but the gentleman's pretty happy down on High Street with the improvements of the home. But we talked about maybe
Oh.
doing something with his road someday.
Yeah.
Can we just make some contact with him?
I did. So we talked about the weirdness about him having the private driveway and the right of way, and we talked about kind of just the city just
Naming
formally
that
kind of
street.
taking that over. Yeah, I think we want to get back and do it. Yeah.
Just wanted a reminder, so
Yeah,
I'm doing that
okay.
for him.
Yeah.
Like I said, it lines up with 85th, but I'm not sure if that's what you guys want. That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Danny, anything for the council tonight?
No, thank you, Mayor. I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Michael.
Nothing to report, but a question for Mike. Mike, with the completion of the culvert replacement over along 95th Street, how's the conversation going with Sunflower towards reimbursement, or what's the latest on that?
Yeah, so we do have the invoices are still kind of trickling in, but we do have a final cost. It looks like it's going to be somewhere around $55,000. Haven't had a whole lot of direct communications about that with Sunflower in the last month or so. We've still given them update on the costs, but we're talking about Sunflower with regard to some other economic development issues, and those discussions are ongoing. So. Yeah, not a lot of anything direct to report specifically about that.
Okay. I just presume you'll keep us posted.
Yeah. Still pursuing it. Yeah, we haven't forgotten.
Okay, anything else, Kevin?
No, sir.
All right. A couple of quick items. One, I sent everybody a invite to a webinar on an economic forecast that Frank Link, who did the one for Mark, is presenting again. If you wanted more information on that, you can sit in on that. I think that's coming up sometime next week. The other item I wanted to make you aware of is the county is the CARES Act funding that the county received. They have understood that they have a responsibility to share that with the communities, the cities within the county. There's the method as which they will go about doing that is what they're discussing now, and I'm afraid the path that they're going on is going to be a long, drawn-out process to develop some sort of a lot of bureaucracy and hoops when they could simply decide how much should be shared with the communities, share it to the communities based on our population, and then we document what we spend it on and are prepared to defend that in an audit with the government and return what we don't use. So I don't know if there's any action. I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Perhaps maybe a email or called our county commissioner and commission chair. Just if you agree with that, or if you think that the county should manage that and dole the funds out as they approve our expenditures, then I guess you wouldn't want to make that call. But I just think we can manage those funds as well as anyone from the county can. We have the staff here to do that. We're familiar with the requirements of and strings that go along with federal funds, and we're capable of doing that. So I think with that, I would entertain a motion to end our meeting.
I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Well, with the motion carried.
Who made the second?
Kevin.
I
On a Michael.
couldn't tell if it's Kevin or Danny. Thank you.